Repeat after me. Love, not hate, makes our country great. 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 Thank you guys for being here tonight. Give yourselves a huge round of gratitude and applause. This is everything right here. We wanted to say welcome, first of all, and we wanted to start off by thanking you for showing up tonight. I cannot express to you how proud we are to be a part of a community that fearlessly steps forward to demonstrate solidarity and unity in a time of utmost division and vitriol in our nation. Thank you for stepping up and for using your voice to challenge hate, racism, and intolerance in our streets. Hundreds of thousands of people have taken action across the nation in response to the events of Charlottesville this past weekend, including hundreds right here in our own mountains. And I'm from here, and I can tell y'all 20 years ago, that would not have happened. So, thank you. Hundreds showed up in Brevard, Henderson, Franklin, Asheville, and now Waynesville to stand together and say that these mountains will rise above hate. Our shared message of love is a powerful one, and it will be our only salvation. We are going to hear from some incredible leaders in our own community tonight on the message of embodying and expanding that love. As we listen to our guests, we must be prepared to realize that these are uncomfortable and painful times. And we have to be ready to sit with that discomfort and with that pain if we hope to truly eradicate racism, systematic oppression, and white supremacy in our country. As Song, or Southerners on New Ground, so eloquently put it, traditions run deep here. Both traditions of repression, structural white supremacy, and also traditions of collective resistance and resilience. This land has seen hundreds of years of white supremacy, conquest, rape, bloodshed, violence, chains, wickedness, and torches. But it has also seen hundreds of years of breaking those chains, of resistance, of struggle, of burying the evil, and our fists raised high in the air. Charlottesville was the worst of our history trying to bleed into our present. And tonight is about healing those wounds, stopping that blood, and challenging ourselves to do better and be better in the name of love. Before we hear from our inspirational leaders, you should know that it will not be an easy road to rise above hate. It's going to be a lot of work for all of us, and we can't be afraid of that. We have to embrace it because our work does not stop with Charlottesville. It doesn't stop with this vigil. It doesn't stop with this week, and it does not stop with this president. It doesn't stop until Black children are no longer murdered in the streets at the hands of those who are meant to protect and serve. It does not stop until immigrant children no longer have to feel helpless with fear for the fate of their parents. Our work does not stop until violence in all of its forms is stomped out before it sets fire to the families in our own neighborhoods. Our work does not stop until this land truly belongs to you and me, regardless of the color of your skin, the God that you believe in, or where you came from. We have to be ready to name the problem and call it out when we see it. We have to be ready to identify racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, xenophobia, and intolerance in all of its forms when it rears its ugly head. We have to be ready to call out a system that institutionally oppresses and brutalizes our brothers and sisters of color. We have to be ready to call out a system that criminalizes marginalizes our immigrant brothers and sisters. We have to be ready to call out this system that locks rural, working-class white folks out of economic opportunity and pits us against our neighbors instead of against the people in power who have been pulling the strings that cause our shared suffering. It does not stop until we no longer feel uncomfortable saying the words, Black Lives Matter. Immigrant lives matter. Queer lives matter. Muslim lives matter. Women's lives matter. Poor lives matter. Look around you. Just take a good look around. See the people standing next to you? These people are on the front lines of a battle for peace, justice, and equality, against inequality. These are the people who have chosen to stand on the right side of history. Woo! These are the people who are taking the responsibility upon themselves to be the change that we want to see. These are the people who are responsible for doing the work that needs to be done in order to create a future that is truly equal and just for all of our brothers and sisters, and that truly represents what we believe in here in the South. Yes. Before we hear from our inspirational leadership and the direction that we're going to move in from here, we would like for everyone to please take a moment of silence in honor of the work of those who carried the burden of this movement before us, and a moment of silence for Heather Heyer, and to sit with the discomfort of the reality that we have been given and the hard work that lies ahead of us. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna plug it in first.
Little technical difficulties, but we got it.
Thank you for that moment of silence. Now I am happy to introduce, we have 6 amazing speakers here today. And we are going to start with the Reverend Jocelyn Schaefer from Grace Church in the Mountains. Please give her a round of applause.
First, I want to say thank you to the organizers who are taking the risk in deliberately asking somebody of faith, and not only a person of faith, but a religious leader to come and speak, because that's not without risk these days. That's not without risk. To have somebody of explicit faith claims come into the public square and speak. On Sunday, one of our texts had this line, "How beautiful are the feet of those who bring the message of peace." So I want you to look down at your feet. Right now, look down at them. I don't care if you've got toenail fungus, you've got bunion problems, a neuroma, you haven't cut your toenails in 3 months. Beautiful are the feet of those who bring the message of peace. But I want you to tell you that you need to beware. Our tradition teaches us that people who bring the message of peace are often not welcome. Maybe not in their hometown, maybe not in the public square, maybe not in the halls of Congress or in the White House. People who are announcing peace are often not welcome. And that shouldn't be a big surprise for those of us who are part of the Jesus movement, right? When we're baptized, we're entering into this cycle of renouncing evil and affirming goodness. Renouncing evil in all of its manifestations on a cosmic level, which probably freaks some of you guys out to even think about that concept. To renounce evil on a structural and systemic level, and to renounce evil that's within ourselves on a personal level. But the good news is, as I've seen on one of your signs, that love always wins. Thank you, Carlos, for carrying that sign. But it doesn't win without a struggle, because evil's always there trying to trip us up, trying to seduce us, trying to make us think that having power over is better than sharing power with. Now, I was told by the organizers that one of the themes tonight was tolerance, and I have some bad news. I can't speak on that as a Christian virtue. It might be a political virtue, but tolerance is not a Christian virtue. Love is a Christian virtue. St. Paul doesn't say faith, hope, and tolerance. These three shall abide. And the greatest of these is tolerance. Faith, hope, and love. Abide. And the greatest of these is love. Jesus doesn't say, blessed are the tolerant. Jesus says, blessed are the peacemakers. Jesus doesn't say, tolerate your enemies. Jesus says, now, that's hard. What does that mean? It certainly doesn't mean that we condone the behavior of those who are caught up in the lies and seductiveness of white supremacy. It means that we come to love them enough to participate in their transformation, and then, through that, our own, being transformed into people of peace who have beautiful feet as we bring that message over and over again in these mountains. Now, I want to tell you a story that happened a long, long time ago. It's a Jesus story. What do you expect? I'm a priest. But some things never change, some things do. And this was set in a time in the Middle East when there were laws against women, particularly harsh laws for those engaged in sexually out of the realm of normal behavior. Now, that doesn't happen still today, does it? No. So Jesus encounters this group of the powers that be who have just caught a woman who is engaged in adultery. And the powers that be says, we're pursuing justice, we're pursuing the lost, we need to stone her, that's what our law says. And what does Jesus do? He bends over and writes in the sand. And then he looks at them, all the powers that be, and says, whoever here hasn't ever made a mistake, if you're without sin, cast the first stone. They drop their rocks and walk away. Now, I think that's relevant for us in a couple ways. One, it's clear to me that we can't come into the presence of goodness, of sheer goodness, what I call the presence of Christ, when we're burdened by antagonisms. We have to clear the antagonisms before we can come into the presence of goodness. And the second thing this story says to me is that I need to take a look at myself. Peace begins within myself. It might be tempting, even in a nonpartisan gathering such as this, but one that I suspect the majority of us lean one way or the other, probably to the left. It might be tempting for us to blame everything on the other side. But friends, that's not going to help us very much. When we separate into left and right, liberal, conservative, progressive, whatever, that does nothing but perpetuate these cycles of being better than them. We are better than them. And I think that the message of the gospel and the message of this movement is that we're called to a much higher unity than continuing in these divisions, these simplistic divisions of left, right, wrong. Let's forget that neither side in our contemporary political context has a monopoly on violence. So we're called to this higher unity. And I think that unity is often found very locally, and very particularly in sharing food, cultivating curiosity rather than judgment. Like Friday night, I was at the Pigeon Center, and we all laughed together when we saw these children, the minority of whom were white, dress up like M&Ms and remind us not only of simple math, but also that all M&Ms taste equally delicious. Or when right here, Main Street is closed off every other Friday, and whoever wants to join the circle dance is invited, even if they have 2 left feet. It's these particular expressions of sheer goodness that we need to be a part of. So even if you have 2 left feet, my friends, remember that beautiful are the feet of those who bring the message of peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Schaefer. Thank you so much for that beautiful message. We are pleased to have another spiritual leader in our presence to share this next message. Reverend Zach Christie from the Plains United Methodist Church. Please give him a round of applause.
Well, I just want to thank y'all for letting me be here this evening just to speak with y'all for a minute. I like many of you, was saddened, heartbroken, and just generally shocked when I saw the events that took place in Charlottesville over the weekend. The tragic loss of life by our civilians, by our police force, is completely unacceptable and a reminder that evil still exists in our communities and in our societies. There is a darkness in our world that we don't want to acknowledge, but our failure to acknowledge it has only helped it grow in strength and size. You know, I've wondered, since I was asked to speak, what I was going to say. I love the mountains of western North Carolina. My family's been here since before the American Revolution. But perhaps because I've had this grand view of these mountains, I've been unable to see that this darkness that was building in our communities and in our societies is present even here. I believe that what I saw spewed across the news and across the internet was isolated, and that it would just stay there. All that came to a head, though, on Friday, when I saw men holding torches, screaming at people who suggested maybe they should put their torches down. I reckon in a lot of sense, that's my privilege showing, thinking that I could have this Pollyannish view of our communities and of our world, to think that people would simply stay isolated and away from me. But that world, whatever world I contrived in my mind, it doesn't exist. And it wasn't just Charlottesville that shattered that for me. I guess that image has been crumbling for quite some time now. So here we are, gathered in Waynesville, North Carolina, to show our solidarity with those who stand against the powers that be, that seek to oppress, demean, and negate the humanity of others based on some misguided understanding of race or religion. It's sad that it's come to this. But silence isn't an option, not for me, not for you, not for any of us. We can't sit here in Waynesville and act as if Charlottesville is some far-off, distant place. We don't have the luxury of silence anymore. And in fact, I figure we've probably been using silence as a defense mechanism for far too long now. I know I certainly have. When I was asked to speak, I wanted to have something beautiful and something insightful to say, some perfect way forward. But the more I thought about it, the more I came to the realization that the only way forward is through love. It seems to me there's a serious lack of love both in our public and in our personal lives. I think if there's a way forward, if there is a way to unity and community, it is love. And I know that word gets tossed around an awful lot in our culture. People say we have to love one another. We have to love each other even if we disagree with one another. We hear that an awful lot. But it seems to me that our cultural conceptions of love aren't doing the trick. So I suggest that today we start redefining the word love. As a preacher, I get to spend most of my time in Scripture. And I've noticed something about the word love in Scripture. Very rarely does the word love mean a warm, fuzzy feeling. Almost every time we see love used in Scripture, it is used in a way that means commitment to one another as human beings. It means wanting the best for one another, even if what's best for you may not be best for me. Christ gives his disciples a final commandment before he goes to the cross. And it's that they love one another in the same way Jesus Christ has loved each and every one of us. Meaning that we love one another by recognizing that we all share a common humanity. It doesn't mean that we have to like each other. It is okay to disagree. It's okay to have argumentation and debate. But I promise you this, it is so much more powerful to sit across from a table with someone, to look them in the eye and say, even though I disagree with almost everything you've said, I love you as a brother or a sister. I promise you, that does so much more in the world than winning an intellectual debate. Evil triumphs when we become so entrenched in our positions that we can't see the humanity sitting across from us. I wish I could tell you the perfect way forward, but I don't know it. What I do know is that we can't stop loving one another. What we can't do is characterize people in unilateral terms. What we saw in Charlottesville was a group of people who wanted to reduce their brothers and sisters to their lowest denominator. Well, we know that people aren't simply one-sided. See, I firmly believe evil triumphs when divisions are made clear. When I can define myself as part of one group and you as part of another, then I get free license to hate you because you're different than me. When that happens, love loses and evil triumphs. In my experience, what people hate is a caricature of a person, not the actual person. What we see playing out on a national scale right now is people hating one another without actually knowing one another. And the reason they don't know one another is that evil has a greater grip on our society than love does. If we are to have unity, if we are to have community, both here in Waynesville and across the world, what is necessary is that our love be more committed than the hate we see on display. How do we love? We love by refusing to simply see the world in black and white. We love by acknowledging that while someone may think or believe differently than we do, they still have value as a human being. For our love to be more committed, it means that we have to break out of our comfort zones. We have to break out of our silos. We have to meet people where they are. You don't have to believe that someone else is right, but you do have to believe that if there is a way forward, it is through your love and relationship with them. What we're doing here tonight is important. It's important that we come together. It's important that we build one another up. What we can't do is let tonight simply be tonight. The hate we see on display in Charlottesville has been brewing a whole lot longer than the love we see here tonight has. It's going to be a daily grind to go out into the world and to love stronger than the hate. When we leave this evening, don't let this be the end. Let tonight be a starting point. Walk out tonight ready to love. Now, I may just be a little Methodist preacher, but the way I see it, our choice tonight is not whether to love or to hate, because I don't believe anyone consciously chooses to hate. Our choice tonight is to have love stronger than the hate. For if community and unity are to thrive, love must be present. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Christy. Thank you so much. And it is with great honor that I introduce our next speaker, who is an organizer out of Asheville, who primarily organizes around the causes of racial injustice and sexual injustice. Is that right? Yeah. And policy issues. Please give a round of applause to Ms. Nicole Townsend.
I must first start with a disclaimer. I didn't come here tonight to pacify good intentions, feelings, or fragility. Every day I wake up, I fight for the liberation of Black people, of queer people, and of trans people. I see a lot of signs that have the word peace in them, so I feel moved to share something by Nick Peterson. Peace had 80% of his spine severed. Peace was choked to death on the sidewalk. Peace was killed in her home while she was sleeping on the couch with her Nana. Peace was beat down on the side of the highway. Peace was shot 11 times in 16 seconds and handcuffed while dead. Peace has been raped, beaten, lynched, and buried. So when you pray for peace, remember she had a name and that her family loved her. Remember that peace was a mother's son. If your prayers for peace are nothing more than a desire for hell to go back into hiding, then you're not praying for peace. You're just praying for oppressed people to grow more tolerant to their oppression. Respectability politics are not a reflection of peace. Too many people think of peace like anesthesia. Just something to make you sleep and not feel the pain while your life is in someone else's hands. Peace is the termination of this fatal disease called oppression. Tonight when some of us go home, we're gonna post really pretty pictures on our social media accounts and we're gonna say, I'm standing up against white supremacy, but the truth is, us being here today is not standing up against white supremacy. As white people, I'm asking you to go home and read the mandate for Black Lives. I'm asking you to go to your city council people and to your commissioners and speak truth to power. I'm asking you to go to your school board meetings and speak truth to power. I'm asking you to trust Black leadership and to listen to Black leadership. I'm asking you to start understanding why a lot of Black people in our country have an issue with the police. See, we notice that it's not an individual thing, but if you read your history books, you'll find that our police institutions were formed out of people who were called slave catchers. Therefore, our police institutions are founded on white supremacy. I'm asking you to go do your homework, and then I'm asking you to show up, and not just to rallies, because these are easy. It's easy to come out here for 2 hours, but it's hard to sit in rooms and hear people say, hey, you're privileged and you need to let go of some power. Hey, you're privileged and you need to give up some of that money. I'm asking you to take action. This is pretty, but tomorrow take action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. All right, so next we're going to have a representative from one of our local NAACP chapters. This is Marsha Lee Baker from Jackson County. Give her a big round of applause. Thank you.
Joyce Stratton to please stand with me today. She is a founding member of the Jackson County branch of NAACP. And I didn't ask her to come to hold my laptop. And so let me go on and give you the live from Waynesville example of humility and lack of ego. Okay? So I've never in my life read from a computer to anybody, much less a group of people. And I have always fussed at people who ran out of printer ink before they came to class and couldn't print their assignment, which is exactly what happened to me today. So I'm having to eat those words. I ain't so hot as I thought I was, right? I'm not perfect. Who knew, right? So here Joyce is also holding my laptop. I'm also a punter today. Enrique Gomez is the president of Jackson County branch of NAACP, and he is dealing with urgent situations in other areas, and so I volunteered to speak. Thank you! But I am chosen as the core of my comments, something that Enrique often closes his written communications with. He signs them off, lead with love. And that's where I'm headed today. And no, I did not plagiarize the first minister's talk today. I'm against that too. Okay. So I also want us to think about lead with love, because we're going to do it as Reverend, now Bishop Barber, has encouraged us to lead with love. Forward together, not one step back. Forward together, not one step back. Once more. Forward together, not one step back. So that's the vein in which I am speaking today. Love may conquer hate, but I want to emphasize today that moreover, love can transform hate. We've got this notion of love, hate as these oppositions, and one of them's going to beat the other. Well, no, I love you more, I'm going to beat you, hate, or vice versa. What's up with that? No, I don't think so. What I want us to do is think of this as transplanting, in a way that we transplant people and ideas into some new common ground for transformation. This also is coming from a wannabe midlife gardener, okay? And so that's why I'm using this metaphor of transplanting and transformation. I want to say, well, I don't mean this as we're doing this blindly or silently. We all know the brutal history of our country. So I do not want for a second anybody to think I've put that aside as I ask us to transform. Love transforms hate. Think of transplanting as pulling up that which is rooted in the barren, unlivable soils of ignorance, apathy, misunderstanding, fear, and place that which we've uprooted into the fertile soils of knowledge, care, understanding, mercy. That's the ground all of us here proclaim to grow on and grow from. And yet, we gotta step back and admit maybe some of us need a little transplanting too. Like me and all my uppityness about my students and technology, right? Maybe I need a little bit of pruning and refertilizing when it comes to the moral majority. Let's face it, in the face of violent events, it's relatively easy to be self-righteous or egotistical in our certainty that we are right. We are on the moral high ground. Sure, right now we are angry at fellow human beings who are violating what we value and who we love. We know, excuse me, Reverend, we know about preaching to the choir, right? We are the choir here today. So how do we move forward a little bit, okay? Well, one thing is to remember all of our words and deeds are seen beyond the choir, outside the church or outside the park or outside the venue where we hold our next vigil. We have to think about people, well, like the people in Charlottesville, who we are so sad and angry at. We have to think about people in Western North Carolina, people in Waynesville, people in Silva, people who our neighbors or family members, people who don't think like us, don't seem to be coming from the same ground as we are. We're living with them too. Woo! Okay. So, when we leave this evening, what acts of transplanting and what transformation, what will those acts look like? Well, it can look like reminding ourselves to be humble, even though we feel self-righteous. Reminding ourselves of everyone's humanity, even when it's hard to believe or trust that it's in everybody. We're going to have conversations with people we came here today with. Conversations to start with, I don't know, 2 or 3 of us, and say, well, let's listen to 2 or 3 of them, so we can start to transform us and them, into common ground that we transform ourselves in. We can choose to conquer, or we can choose to transform. David Lamont's proclamation comes to mind, and I quote the famous senior writer of Western North Carolina. Okay, you are changing the world whether you like it or not. So which change will you make? As we pray, meditate, walk, whatever it is we do here in the next few days, gathering in silence or with others, let's offer a word or two, a thought or two, an action for people with whom we don't agree, people who we cannot stand with right now, people who don't understand us, and people like us who want to be understood. Well, there you have it. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Thank you, ladies, for being here and representing some of our local chapters. And next, we have Amy Cantrell with an organization called Beloved Asheville.
Hey, friends. It's my honor to be with you tonight because I need to be here. Some of y'all may have been in a room and they're usually anonymous and it goes something like this. Hi, I'm Amy, and I'm going to say, hi, I'm Amy, I'm a racist. Because we think it's not us. And I follow a radical Jesus who calls us not only to be radical love makers and radical peacemakers, but to call us to do something even harder, which is to be radical risk takers and to be radically honest with ourselves. I wonder if there are any cancer survivors standing among us. Yeah, I see a hand. If you've been through that hard journey, I see lots of hands. Do you know a cancer survivor? Anybody? Usually, as a pastor, I have walked with lots of people that are cancer survivors and some not. And usually the protocol goes something like this. We're going to get you in for surgery immediately. They don't mess around, see, with cancer, because we all know it's deadly. They say we're going to cut it out. Or as the ancient story says, if your hand offends, cut it off. You don't mess around. It's something that can kill you. And I'm telling us that we are messing around with something that's killing us. Racism and white supremacy is killing us all. I woke up one day when I was 20, and that's when I discovered I needed the room for my racism. We don't have those yet in the basements of churches, but I'm hoping. And I had a dear one that told me it's not your fault. But now that you know, you gotta do work. You gotta go through some radical surgery because it's gonna kill you. And you know, if surgery doesn't work, the next step is not treatment. They call it that to be nice. The next step is poison. right? Because again, we don't mess around with something that's going to kill us. We need some radical surgery and some radical poison. Because racism is at the root. Racism is at the root, and that's what the word radical means. We got to go to the root. And we have a faith strong enough to take us to the root. Do we not?
That's right.
But unfortunately, most of the time, when I sit in churches, we don't believe that. We are scared to death of this cancer that is racism and white supremacy. Y'all know we're scared. When confronted, we typically back down, right? You know, somebody tells a joke that, you know, is overtly racist, and we just kind of giggle nervously and we back down. Or we see a Confederate flag, and we shake our heads and look the other way. I took my children when they were 2 to be in a room with Bree Newsom. I grew up a daughter of the South in South Carolina. I've made these mountains my home for the last 15 years. But I said I want my children to be in a room with a woman that climbed to the top of the state house and took down an image that was killing us. She did some radical surgery, some radical risk taking. And you know, I have to say that the folks that I see that are willing to wrestle this cancer to the ground typically have black skin, who are taking more and more and more risks. We have to lean into risk. So tonight is not the night. It's what you do tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Are you willing to go through radical surgery? Are you willing to go into the schools here and say, we need radical surgery? It's not a judgment, it's just a reality. It's just a reality. We have a disease that's going to kill us all. Are we willing to lay our bodies down in front of our children? Are you willing to risk? Because every day they go into schools where they are set up. By the number, we know this. In this courthouse, every day people walk in there and they're set up by this cancer that is racism. We've got to go to the roots. Because there was a lynching that happened here in 1900. Did you know that? And a mob of folks, good folks, gathered and they used guns and they shot bullets into the jail and they lynched somebody. But there are lynchings happening here all the time, quiet lynchings, where people are being stolen away from our communities, people that we love, people that we need in our lives. And only risk stops that. So I'm going to pray over you a holy prayer. I'm going to pray that God will trouble your water. That you will ask and pray to the great physician to pick up the knife and take you into the holy OR and to take this community into the holy OR. Till from every valley to every mountain, down every holler of Haywood County, into every school, every business, every church and faith community, every home, that racism and white supremacy is cut out and poisoned, so that we may gain back our common humanity, our common liberation, and our common destiny. And that's the radical power of love. I'll close with a quote from Reverend Tracy Blackman, who put her body in front of people armed to the teeth. And she said this: the God I serve is love radical, redeeming love. Love is hard, and love is holy, and love is the only thing that heals. And I will not let anyone or anything take my love. And I will risk everything for love. Because love is the answer, but it must be a radical love that calls us into a day out of our history. I grew up hearing you are the ancestor of Robert E. Lee. And I want to say tonight that my ancestor suffered from a cancer that was killing him slowly and surely, caused all of us to suffer with the cancer. And on and on and on it goes. And so let us love radically tonight.
Thank you. Love is hard. That's the part I took tonight, but I think we all need to sit on for a little bit. It's not meant to be easy because nothing worth doing has ever been easy. And so finally, we're going to wrap it up with our final speaker. Is it Reverend Keith Foreman of First United Methodist Church.
When I was 2 years old, my mom and dad left these mountains and went to work for the Methodist Church in Palembang, Indonesia. So I started kindergarten at the little public school there, and I was really excited, and I got more excited that first day of school when I saw the room and my desk and my little writing pad, and there were these very cool sandboxes built into the wall all around this classroom with all these plastic toys in the sandbox. And I don't think it was the first day of class, but it was early on. I don't remember exactly what happened, but what I do remember was that the entire classroom was staring at me. And the teachers were too. And they were laughing, like uncontrollable laughter. And I remember being confused and embarrassed, and I was 5 years old. And I just started crying, and I put my head down on the desk. I was the only white kid in the class. But my parents didn't take me out of that school. They left me in that room with those people who had traumatized me. And you can probably guess what happened. By the end of that school year, and all the memories that I have, except for that one bad one, are just lots of laughter with them and playing in those sandboxes, fast friends with all of these kids whose skin was a lot darker than mine. When I was 12 years old, my dad became the pastor of the United Methodist Church just over the hill in Cherokee on the Indian Reservation. So as a 12-year-old, I was excited about going to the Cherokee High School because they had a swimming pool inside the school and this really cool shop class with all this amazing stuff. Little Ed was in my homeroom, and Little Ed was not little. He was about twice the size of me, and he, along with a lot of the other guys in my 7th grade class, gave me a lot of trouble. There were elbows into my ribs in the hallway, in the locker room. I'd get shoved into the locker as they were passing by. I'd be walking up the ramp, and my books that I was carrying would go flying through the air. And there was always this whisper of white boy, go home, white boy. I was one of maybe 5 white students. And I remember being confused by that until we went unto these hills, and until I began to get to know the story of what white people did to the Cherokee Nation. It didn't make life easier for me, but at least I had some sense, as a 12-year-old can have sense of anything, that there was something very deep and dark behind what was happening to me. But you know, I couldn't run away from that, and I couldn't not go to school. I had to go to school every day, into that homeroom with Little Ed, who loved to pick me up over his head and stuff me in the trash can. And everybody thought it was funny. And that great swimming pool became a nightmare for me because he and others would try to hold me under the water. And I literally thought I was going to drown. And I'm like, where in the world is the coach? Who's going to save me? But a year in a homeroom with Little Ed, and maybe you can guess what happened. We became fast friends. And Cherokee is that place probably that I call home more than any other place. It was one of those weekends where I didn't really pay attention to the news, and so I was going to bed last night, and I'm like, I think I want to look at the news, and that's when I discovered the news. And I went to sleep deeply disturbed, at the stuff that we're talking about today. And I woke up early this morning, and I had a sermon text in mind for Sunday. And I looked at the lectionary passages and discovered that the one for today was one of those disturbing passages about Jesus that I've never preached on, and I'm not sure why, but it's one of those texts where you like, I think I'm not going to preach on that this week because it's really a hard one. But after all that has happened, and not just this weekend, but for some years now, there's just the disturbance of life that we all feel and that we want to do something about. I knew that I have to live with this text. It's that one where the Canaanite woman is crying out to Jesus for mercy. Have mercy on me, Lord, Son of David. And Jesus' responses to her are kind of rude. He ignores her, it seems like. He tells her, I've come for the children of Israel. And when she's persistent, he says, well, is it fair for me to give the children's bread to the dogs? And you read that and you're like, what in the world is going on? And I'm just going to tell you, I don't know yet. I have until Sunday to figure that out. Because I'm not going to run from this passage. There are nationalist overtones to this text, and Jesus is right in the middle of it. But one of the things that happens in this story is the disciples say to Jesus, you need to send her away. And I thought, they seem to do that a lot. That when the children come, they say, send the children away. When the crowd needs to be fed, and there's 500 of them, they say to Jesus, just send them away. There's a blind man who cries out, very much like this Canaanite woman, to have mercy, and they're like, be quiet, you need to go away. And Jesus' response is always to embrace them, because his presence is the presence of a God whose very nature and character is love. And so I was working on that text and reading it and trying to figure out what I was going to do. I think I had already decided that I wasn't going to run away. When I talked with Natasha, and she invited me to stand on these steps. And I said, of course. A few hours later, I'm like, why did I do that? But one of the things that she said as she was trying to explain to me why we would be gathering was that we need to stand in this place and be a witness because there's no room in our mountains for hate. And I know we all agree with that. I hope we all agree with that. But I am a preacher, and I do a lot of talking. I mean, I kind of have to. That's one of the things they pay me to do on Sunday mornings. And I know that it's an important thing, but I'm always restless with just talking about stuff. And so to say and to believe and to cheer that there's no room for hate in these mountains, I was left asking the question, so what are we going to make room for? And I found myself thinking, okay, so what are we supposed to do? Like, this is today, and we have to take a stand today for things that are wrong. But we do have to do something tomorrow. How do we make room for love? And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. But I really do think it might have something to do with just being in the same room. Like, making room for love means making room for each other. And I think that also has to include people that maybe we don't like very much, as someone has said, people that we don't understand, people that we don't currently love. I'm brand new at First United Methodist Church. I'm discovering that this is an amazing group of people that gather not just on Sunday, and it's a group that's very much full of love. They make room for lots of things. And so, as I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do as a pastor, I just want to make a promise to you that I'm going to do all that I can to take on Nicole's challenge for us to be more than just rhetoric. But maybe Nicole will get in the room and help us to figure that out together. We've got to get in the same room, because I believe with all of my heart that that's the only place where we can fall in love. And falling in love with each other is the only hope that we have for this world to be what we know God wants it to be. Thank you.
It's a heavy day, so take a deep breath in and out. So some things I from today. Love is not easy. You have to be willing to make yourself uncomfortable and those around you uncomfortable in order to get to the more comfortable side of the fence, right? So thank you all for sharing that message with us. And for those of you who are feeling inspired to carry this work beyond this vigil and this Monday night, there are many options to take action. We must be the change that we wish to see. I cannot say that enough. We must take on the shared responsibility of being a voice of unity in our own community. It started a long time ago and it won't end for a long time to come. It is one thing to light a candle in a circle, but it's another thing entirely to be a light through the darkness that has enveloped our beautiful country. We need to talk to our neighbors, to our family members, and to our friends. We have to have those uncomfortable, painful conversations about racism on a systematic, covert, and overt level. We have to challenge local, statewide, and national policies that have segregated our children of color into schools that receive less funding and less resources. We have to challenge and break down a system that says being black is a crime and incarcerates nearly 1 out of every 3 black men. We have to challenge and break down a system of policies that say the work of women is less valuable than the work of men, and the work of black women is hardly valuable at all. It is not enough to show up in the name of love and claim that we love everyone. That is the first step, showing up. And you've done a great job at showing up. But we have to not just show up, we have to show that we love our black, brown, queer, Muslim, immigrant, and native brothers and sisters. We have to name the ways. We have to point out the ways that systematic racism has othered certain people. It has caused generations of economic, political, and social violence. So if you're ready to act, to use your voice, and not just your voice, but your body, to stand on the right side of history. If you're ready to join one of the groups you heard from today, or if you're ready to call your senator or to hold your government and our system accountable for working for all people in our communities, then we have a pledge that we would like you to take with us today. And I will call out a line, and if you guys could repeat after me in order to take the pledge, that'd be great. I pledge to work to eradicate racism wherever it exists.
I pledge to eradicate racism wherever it exists.
In my heart, my home, on my job, and in my community. In my heart, my home, on my job, and in my community. I will not speak or act. I will not speak or act in ways that demean my brothers and sisters. In ways that demean my brothers and sisters. I will speak up and act. I will speak up and act when I hear or see racism demonstrated in any way. When I hear or see racism demonstrated in any way. I will work to create inclusive, welcoming communities. I will work to create inclusive, welcoming communities where I live, work, and worship. Where I live, work, and worship. I take this pledge fully aware. I take this pledge fully aware that the struggle to eliminate racism will not end with a mere pledge. That the struggle to eliminate racism will not end with a mere pledge, but calls for an ongoing transformation. But calls for an ongoing transformation within myself and the institutions and structures of our society. Within myself and the institutions and structures of our society. Thank you. And if you're not done, we also have some information, if you didn't pick it up already on the table, that you are welcome to take with you. Please I implore you, do not let this be the last stop on your own personal journey towards justice. Thank you for being here.